Hello, today I wanted to share my first impressions of the Kawasaki BK-117 from MSCENERY. It's always exciting to try out a new aircraft for the first time, so I booted up my Quest 2 for some VR flying action and loaded up the BK-117 at Southampton International Airport. However, as soon as it was loaded up, I was greeted by the blue box saying VR controllers are not supported on this aircraft. Now, this is quite common with third-party aircraft, and it's not a huge deal for me as I don't use the touch controllers when I'm flying anyway. However, I'm aware there are some players that do, so this could be a frustration for them. For me, the biggest problem with this means that I can't use the VR zoom. As most VR headsets, including the Quest 2, don't have the same resolution as a monitor, it makes it very hard to read a lot of the gauges, so it's very useful to be able to zoom in on them. But this isn't a deal breaker for me. There are other aircraft that I fly regularly which don't support VR controllers either. The next glaring issue that struck me is that I appear to be sitting on the wrong side of the helicopter. While it may be normal for the pilot in command to sit on the left hand side in an aeroplane, in a helicopter it's normal to sit on the right. There are some exceptions to this, but as this helicopter doesn't appear to have a collective on the left, I'm guessing this isn't one of them. While this seems a little unusual, it's not a big deal. I can just slide the camera over to the other side. So, now to start her up. I open the checklist and the first items, as expected, are to check the controls. Cyclic clear, fore, aft, left and right, check. Pedals clear, left and right, check. Collective. Collective? The collective isn't responding. But wait, if I use the buttons that I've bound for rolling in the throttle, rather than the axis I've bound for the collective does move. It's weird, but it's workable. Prepping for engine start. Check fuel shutoff. There are two fuel shutoff switches down here, which appear to be off, but also appear to be inoperable, so I'm going to assume that we have fuel. All switches off, check. Carburetor heat. Well, there's an anti-ice, but it doesn't have an auto option. Master. Where's the master? I can see starter, but that's not the same thing. This is the point where I start to feel the checklist doesn't quite match up with the helicopter. Mixture. There's no mixture control either. But this checklist is starting to look familiar. So I skip ahead to look at the rest of it. Sure enough, injections, magneto, plasma, clutch. This is the checklist for the Cadbury G2. This came as a major red flag. To simply copy the checklist from an existing helicopter is just plain lazy. At this point I decide to abandon the checklist and try and figure out how to start it myself. Now the basic recipe for starting most aircraft is power, fuel and starter. So first off, power. There's two switches labelled generator, which say battery if I hover over them. That's not at all confusing. Next, fuel. There's 4 pump switches, so I'm going to turn them all on. Now I'd hope to see some fuel pressure appear on the gauges, but given my experience so far with this helicopter, I'm not holding my breath. Let's try the starter. Well, I can hear things starting and the rotor appears to be speeding up, so that's promising. I'm going to flick a few more switches and see if I can get the electrics to come online. The collective seems to be doing things by itself, but as we're not shooting into the air, I'm not massively concerned. Some of the gauges on the front console still appear to be caged. However, as all the buttons and switches on the front console are inoperable, I have no way of uncaging them. We have what appear to be engine condition levers up above our head, so let's put those into flight. It looks like the RPM is normalised, so let's see if we can take off. The BK-117 wants to rotate to the right, with a slight forward pitch and slight right roll. A small amount of left rudder and aft left cyclic easily corrects this. As you can see, it's a little wobbly getting started, and the controls feel slightly sluggish. However, this could be due to low airspeed. Once it gets going, it is fairly easy to handle. I still don't have all my gauges working, and I'm not entirely sure those warning lights would do anything if there was a problem, but that aside, it's quite flyable. Now for some manoeuvres. Let's just try a simple dive and pitch back up again. Well, I didn't crash, it regained its lift quite quickly. You may notice the helicopter jerking around a bit. I think this is more down to the replay rather than the helicopter itself. The actual flight was much smoother. As we're flying on replay, let's take this opportunity to have a little look in the back. We have seating for 5, and judging by the smiles on the seats, they seem to be enjoying the ride. And there's a decent amount of cargo space in the back. Ideal for the weekly shop or family vacation. We're now going to head out across the water towards the Isle of Wight, where we'll attempt to land at the Needles Lighthouse heliport. And we're down. And now for the final test of the day. Will it auto-rotate? I wanted to leave this one until after I'd done the landing, just in case, well, you know. If you don't know, auto-rotating is a manoeuvre used to get the helicopter safely on the ground in the event of an engine failure. The basic idea is you trade altitude for airspeed to keep pushing air through the rotors and keep the rotors turning. To do this, you pitch forward into a dive, which results in a rapid descent. With the idea being that when you get close to the ground, you can pitch up again and use your spinning rotors to slow you down before you touch the ground. However, you have to time your pitch up just right. If you pitch up too soon, you lose airspeed too quickly and you drop. If you pitch up too late, well, you hit the ground. I personally tend to err on the too late side. If you're too late, you can still quickly reduce your vertical speed so you don't hit the ground too hard. And the result is that speed is carried forwards instead, and so you might damage the helicopter, but everyone on board should survive. If you're too soon, however, as you've already traded your altitude for airspeed, you have nothing left to give, and so the result is you just drop out of the sky. And this is why altitude is your friend. I can see a nice big field up ahead, so that's where we're going to practice our auto-rotation. Now, it took me a couple of attempts to figure out the best way to make the engine fail on this. I tried turning off the fuel pumps, but that didn't help, and I brought the engine condition levers back to idle. But in the end, as I couldn't turn off the actual fuel valves, I had to turn off the battery. And now we can hear the engine starting to shut down. As I start to pitch forward, I put my collective down about halfway. I've pitched up a bit too soon, but it's not too late to correct it. I still have airspeed. I'm now transitioning to a low level glide, picking my spot to land. As the speed bleeds off, I pitch back and pull up the collective, which acts as a brake. This brings me nice and safely to an albeit firm stop. However, the blades continue to spin, even though they're providing no lift. I did wait quite a while, but they didn't seem to stop spinning, and as there's no road to brake, I couldn't make the stop. All in all, this helicopter flies nicely enough, but it just feels unfinished. Thanks for joining me on this test flight. I hope it's been informative, and if you want to see me flying the Cadbury G2 around the world, the first episode is available now.